on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
And it's 5:06 on O'Connor and Company this Monday morning in the nation's capital. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for getting through your weekend and deciding, you know what, enough with the weekend. Time to get to work. Time to be real. Time to turn on O'Connor and Company. You made the right choice. And you know what? We're going to reward you for it. 7:05, Joe DeGenevo will join us. At 7:35, Laura Morgan, she is with Do No Harm out of Virginia because we've got, sadly, nurses in Virginia are now on the verge of having to take bias training because a Republican state senator has crossed the aisle and voted with Democrats. Do they not know what these bias training things are? 8:05, Maggie Cleary, Deputy Commonwealth Attorney in Culpeper County. An interesting article she just wrote about a brand new bill. Virginia Democrats get their majority down in Richmond, Julie Gunlock, and what do they do first? They say, "Oh, you know what? We've been too hard on criminals. Let's make sure we have lighter sentences for criminals." Boy, read the room, Democrats. And then at 8:35, our very good friend Chris Elston, you know him better as Billboard Chris. He had quite a weekend. This is exciting. It's going to be a great Monday, Julie. Good morning.
This is great. Great lineup. Good morning.
That's Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor. So here's how it all started with Elon Musk this weekend. Big drama with Elon Musk and his mom, actually, jumping in here. Let me explain. Elon Musk took to X, his website, used to be Twitter, and he commented on an article. Let me read you the headline of the article. All right, this is from the Associated Press. The headline is, Biden to prioritize legal status for millions of immigrants. Of course, that would be illegal immigrants. That would be millions of people who have illegally crossed the border, who have been allowed into this country under Joe Biden because he refuses to enforce the border and enforce our basic immigration laws. Millions of them are in this country illegally, and the headline here is, Biden to prioritize legal status for millions of immigrants. All right? So Elon Musk sees that, a legal immigrant to the country, and he says Biden's strategy is very simple. 1, get as many illegals in the country as possible. 2, legalize them to create a permanent majority, a one-party state. This is why they are encouraging so much illegal immigration. Simple yet effective. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see this any other way, right?
And we've been saying it for years that
we
this
have.
Is by design.
Open the floodgates, let as many people in the country illegally, and then demand that they get legal status. Yeah. You see cities like Tacoma Park.
There's a middle step there. Get them hooked on social welfare programs.
Oh, sure.
Give them free stuff, and that'll put you in their favor. And then they vote
even
for
when
you.
they commit heinous crimes, don't deport them.
That's right.
Keep them here,
That's right.
And you're right. We've been saying this for years. And when we say it, we're called Nazis. We're called conspiracy theorists. We're racist. It's the Nazis' great replacement theory. How dare you say such thing? It's like, right. I'm literally repeating what their policy is back to you. All right. So Elon Musk puts that out there. Then Mehdi Hassan, remember him? He used to have a show on MSNBC, but even he got to be too much for MSNBC. Right. He retweeted Elon Musk and said, the owner of this website, richest man in the world, again pushes the neo-Nazi great replacement conspiracy theory.
Here we go.
Which isn't just dumb, but also inspired terrorist mass shootings in El Paso, Christchurch, Pittsburgh, and beyond. So not only is Elon Musk a Nazi, but he's inspiring terrorist attacks and mass shootings here in America.
Yep.
So this went back and forth for a while. The best part of this entire story that I've laid out for you is Elon Musk's mama.
I know. She comes in.
She was
little mama bear action here.
Huge mama bear action.
Yeah.
She had enough of people calling her son a Nazi and a racist and a white supremacist and all these things because he actually is reading the news and regurgitating exactly what he's seeing here. So May Musk, the mother of Elon Musk, decided to take some time and tell her immigrant story. Her immigrant story and her son's immigrant story. Her legal process.
Yes.
In the early 1990s, Elon Musk, remember when and she did the whole thing talking back to her son on Twitter.
Yes, she sort of quote replied to him.
It's very sweet. And by the way, first Elon Musk had to reply. Of course, he had to do the obligatory. I'm very pro increasing legal immigration, which, by the way, he is on the record. He's like, we need legal immigrants here. And by the way, I'd like to hire.
I don't know that I have I don't know that I don't know about increasing it massively or whatever, but I've never been opposed to legal immigration.
Most Americans aren't, because most of us
For
are children
heaven's
of
sakes,
legal
we
immigrants.
wouldn't have Patrice without it.
Exactly. And Elon specifically, not only is he a legal immigrant, but also he has to hire engineers, like really good engineers. And he's like, our schools aren't great.
We know
sometimes we got to look to other countries for engineering.
We know that Americans aren't doing great at math. Okay,
No,
so
they're not. Although it is pretty hilarious. I've lamented this, that the last 2 generations of high school graduates, they've been screamed at to get their STEM degree, get their STEM degree, get their STEM degree, and then they get their STEM degree, and then they instead lose out a job to somebody who's coming in from India with a STEM degree. I mean, we should hire all of our domestic engineers first, and then we can immigrate.
Yes.
So, all right. So Elon Musk says, I'm very pro increasing legal immigration significantly. I'm not anti-immigration. I'm just against a massive number of unvetted people flooding into America, which any rational person should be. All right. So then his mother replies, in the early 1990s, Elon, remember when I would drop you off at Toronto Airport? Passport control wouldn't let you into the U.S. Uh-oh. What I was reading just now just got deleted. Oh guys.
Dear.
Who would do that to me on our shared document? All right, let me go to it. Passport control wouldn't let you into the U.S. because you were Canadian and you'd forgotten your pink slip, which verified you as a student at the University of Pennsylvania. I had to pick you up, take you back to my apartment, return you to the airport with the pink slip. So she's telling this whole story about, first of all, I do like the fact that his mother is calling him out for forgetting to bring his slip when he was in college.
Right.
You remember that day when I had to drive you back from the airport?
Oh, boy, do I feel that. Go on.
When we moved to the U.S. as immigrants, we had to show extreme competencies, pay lawyers, and wait 9 to 12 years to become U.S. citizens. That's coming from Canada. Now young and old can walk into America illegally and receive numerous benefits, which we pay for. Any other legal immigrants think this is fair? And, of course, she got huge responses on the social media platform. She went on to show documentation. She said, I couldn't get U.S. citizenship even though my father and grandmother were born in Minnesota and my grandfather was born in Illinois. I was born in Canada. It took me 12 years through visas, green cards, lawyers, and numerous medical tests. So, I mean, it was a great back and forth, and I love that Elon's mother got
But you're
involved.
right. It's so important. Where is the sympathy for people still waiting in line? Who are going through the legal process? What incentive is there? Not only do you cross the border freely, you get stuff when you get here to make your life easier. Legal immigrants don't. They come in. They don't get a bunch of giveaways. So where is the sympathy for those who have been through this process, like the Musk family? And boy, what a story of success. She got pushed back too because people were saying, oh, well, you were rich.
Right.
No. This is a big misconception about the Musk family.
Oh, she worked like 4 jobs or something.
Her kids worked 4 jobs too. Yeah. I mean, they were all struggling, but it really tells you a lot about their work ethic when you read this sort of back and forth with May Musk.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was a perfect, but you're right. You're South African and Canadian, it's different because they're white. That's why this is, they always bring race into it. That's why this is called a racist neo-Nazi conspiracy theory. Whenever anybody reads the headlines and sees actually rationally exactly what's going on right now with regard to immigration, and you point it out, if you're white, you'll get called a Nazi. Actually, if you're black, you're called a Nazi too.
That's right. It doesn't matter
if you go against it. But it was a great and very telling exchange and a revealing exchange. And I do love it when the richest man in the world is sort of, bailed out by his own mom when he gets into a Twitter fight, which is kind of fun. But in a minute, the U.S. Senate has finally revealed the details of their big border security bill that ties back into this, and we'll give you those details in just a second.
MAL, making sense of party politics, because somebody's got to hold their feet to the fire. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
All right, we got the details on what we're told is a border security bill, but there's not a whole lot here. Basically, based on the analysis I've seen right now of the details of this bill that a couple of Republicans have jumped over, and including James Langford of Oklahoma, I don't know what he's thinking. This is worse than the current law. It's worse than the current law right now with regard to the border and immigration.
100%.
Number one. Number two, it throws good money after bad. And number three, it gives Joe Biden and the Democrats a fig leaf. we let this be a complete disaster for 3 years, and then in an election year, we went ahead and hammered out something bipartisan. It's always got to be bipartisan. Yeah. And then they'll, go ahead and say that they did something when they actually didn't do anything. First of all, bottom line, and this is if you start to get into any fights with anybody on your social media page, your liberal brother-in-law on Facebook or whatever, and they say, it's a bipartisan bill, why don't we pass this bill? This will do something. There's one thing in this that isn't in this bill that no Republican should cite on to. It's very simple, and it's really easy to communicate in your little Twitter spats that you're going to have with people about this. There's absolutely zero in here about securing the border. Mm-hmm. This is a border security bill without anything fixing the unsecure border. You've seen the videos of people going through the little they've cut through a little hole in the fence, the wall that Trump built. And then you see people just flooding in, and the coyotes and human smugglers, throwing them through. It doesn't fix that. There's no funding in here for an actual wall, for an actual border, for an actual protection. And that's a dead on arrival. It's dead on arrival.
It is. And Johnson said that. Johnson said this is worse than I originally thought. It does nothing. Scalise, Stefanik, they are all in agreement that this is dead on arrival. And thank God, because the House is the only one standing up to this kind of I just can't believe. And I love how the Senate is like, we've been hammering this out for months. This is what we get after months?
Right. I know. I love that that's their big exception. How dare you criticize this? We've worked really hard on it. Well, it's still crap. Excuse me. Pardon me. It's probably not the most elegant word to use.
You're absolutely right. Stop bragging about working on this for months.
Yeah.
You're not. Yeah.
It's and it's not going anywhere in the House. I'm quite sure that it won't go anywhere in the House. And I don't even think I'm not sure what the rules are here on whether this has to hit a 60-vote threshold in the Senate to pass by the filibuster rule. But knowing Mitch McConnell, he might actually twist arms and try to get the 10 Republicans to vote for it. It's the other thing that's important about this is, remember when Jay Johnson, the Homeland Security Secretary, talked about how 1,000 illegal crosses a day would overwhelm the system?
Yeah.
This allows for upwards to 4,000 or 5,000 a day before Joe Biden can then declare an emergency and shut it down. By the way, it shouldn't take
Which he never will.
Of course he never will. There's no shall language in there that can't be overridden by the president, which there shouldn't be. The president should be able to have discretion at any given time. But I don't trust this president to have any discretion. And it shouldn't have to. You know what this does is handcuffs the next president. See, the next president should be able to go in there and say on day one, it's an emergency on the border, we're shutting it down. This new language will say, nope, you can't shut it down. It's got to reach a 4,000 person threshold for you to have that discussion. Right. So this actually weakens the next president. This entire bill is designed to be a safety gap for the open borders crowd against Donald Trump winning the election. So Trump goes in there, and now he tries to do anything and reverse what or re-implement what he did during his presidency, and now he'll be taken to court because if this thing becomes the law.
Yeah, and again, it puts a burden also on whoever's president after Trump. But Democrats can't see that. All they see is the election of Donald Trump, and they will destroy institutions and destroy this country, and even, hamper the ability of further presidents beyond Trump. They don't care.
That's right.
They are. It's psychotic how they're acting because of the fear of Donald Trump. They don't think beyond that.
Well, I mean, it is partly a fear of Donald Trump and partly the promotion of their open border policy that they are so intent on.
Yep.
And again, I want to remind you, there are Republicans who think this is a great idea. It's 5:22.
Making sense of your world.
And you got good analysis on stuff.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
And I wanted to say how much I appreciate that.
Making sense of the news.
By the way, I just said that there's some Republicans who are in favor of this Senate bill. One of them appears to be Nikki Haley. Sort of. I mean, of course, she won't actually say that. She did, though, take time to criticize Donald Trump for opposing the Senate bill. See, so that's sort of the same thing. She did say, though, we need a Remain in Mexico program. It's like, who came up with that Remain in Mexico program? Also, I do want to point out, to be fair, there is $20 billion more dollars allocated in this bill for border security, which will just be used to hire new, paper processors to, bring in as many people as quickly as possible. They'll be a lot more efficient at letting people in, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and to be thorough, what did I say? $20 billion on border security? Mm-hmm. Yeah, $60 billion in this package for Ukraine.
Oh, there we go. Mm-hmm.
In our U.S. Senate border protection bill for the United States of America's border protection, we have 3 times as much money going to Ukraine than we have going to our border.
Well, when you put it like that,
$20 billion for the U.S. border security. 60, and by the way, that's 60 more billion. In addition to the, how much more have we already sent to Ukraine? Only this Senate, only this president would try to sell on the American people that we have a border protection bill now made its way. It's going to really fix the problem on the border, and in there is 3 times as much money for Ukraine instead of for our actual border. We'll be dissecting this more today and over the next couple of days. Trust me. And in fact, we've got a little bit more in terms of reactions to this bill throughout the morning. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 now. Thanks for staying with us here this Monday morning in the nation's capital. It's O'Connor and Company on WMAL. It's 7:05. Joe DeGenova will join us. 7:35. Laura Morgan talk about how the legislature in Richmond wants nurses now to go into bias training. And now part of me is like, you know what? If I have to sit through that stuff, everyone should have to sit through it. It's hey, I got an idea. How about, members of the state Senate in Virginia go through bias training?
Yeah, how about that?
Coming up at 8:05, Maggie Cleary. She is a deputy Commonwealth attorney in Culpeper County, and she's pushing back on a new Democrat bill that would cap criminal sentences. Hopefully Glenn Youngkin is going to be vetoing that one. And then at 8:35, our friend Billboard Chris Elston, a leading champion of protecting children from harmful gender transition procedures. That's all coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday.
Do you notice Patrice is our vibe on Friday?
Yes.
And then Julie, you bring us back to reality on Monday.
What are you saying, Larry?
I'm just saying we all have a distinct...
You just think it's perfect that I'm the Monday person.
We have a distinct personality, all of us.
You're so rude.
And I'm not being rude. I'm just pointing out what makes this show work. Is all. Hope you're all done having fun.
I don't deny it. I think I'm a perfect Monday host.
We spoke quite a bit last week about UNWRA. This is the United Nations Relief. Is it Relief and Welfare? I always get
refugee.
The W always freaks me out.
I think WWEF.
Refugee Welfare Program. Anyway, here it is. Relief and Works Agency. We talked about how we and I think a dozen other Western nations have cut our funding for this corrupt organization at the UN because it was discovered that a huge chunk of their staff literally participated in the October 7th terrorist attacks, and then even a bigger number have links to Hamas.
12,000, which is, 12,000 have links to Hamas.
Links to Hamas, which last I checked, not a good thing to be linked to a terror group.
Yep.
So, true to form, within the apologists for UNRWA were already starting to speak up, saying, let's not paint an entire organization based on a few bad apples.
12,000.
Yeah. Well, listen, when you go trillions of dollars into debt, 12,000 is just a few, when you're dealing with numbers like that. Last week, though, they took the defense of UNRWA to a whole new level. They were nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. This is the world we live in.
Yeah.
When a corrupt organization can be tied directly to the terror attacks of October 7th and then be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Because in the upside-down, morally bankrupt universe of the political left and theological left, because really this is a religion at this point with these people, you can do no wrong if you oppose and even slaughter the Jews. I'm sorry, you got to call it out for what it is. This is blatant anti-Semitism. If any other organization was tied to any other horrific terror attack against any other group on this planet, they would be universally condemned. Instead, people are making excuses for these people, and for one reason only, because the target was Jews.
That's
and it's
right.
disgusting.
That's right. It was actually a Norwegian parliamentary official, whose name I will butcher. So he said that he nominated the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for the prize. He said that it's for long-term work to provide vital support to Palestine in the region in general, and added, this work has been critical for 70 years. Oh, yeah. Things have gotten really, really so much better over there. And even more vital in the last 3 months. And he says, and even more vital in the last 3 months, when they slaughtered Jews. Got it.
Right. Well, and here's, even if you're making the case that, well, this is really about the decades of service they've done, maybe wait till next year. Maybe not do this,
right.
6 days after they were just linked to the terror attack.
They're still looking for evidence of DNA and the charred remains of those kibbutzes on the border. And they're nominating this disgusting agency for a Nobel. But wait, one thing we haven't said. Yeah. This is, in some ways, this is good. Look, the Nobel Peace Prize has been a joke for years.
Ever since I drew the line at Yasser Arafat. When Yasser Arafat won a Nobel Peace Prize, I was like, okay, we're done. We're done here. I
mean, this is just yet another one of these sort of leftist organizations that long ago stopped being serious. And this is more evidence. And so, yeah.
Well, it's like, at the National Journalism Center through YAF, we've created the Dow Prize, because the Pulitzer Prize means nothing anymore.
That's right.
When the Russian collusion hoaxers can win Pulitzer Prizes, and they still haven't gotten back the Pulitzer Prize.
And magazine covers, and never have to say they're sorry, and face no consequences.
Okay, it means nothing. We should start our own Peace Prize now, if we really want a Peace Prize. But you remember, the other thing I want to point out here is during the Trump administration, when Donald Trump actually ended wars and oversaw various peace agreements in the Middle East, where we had 4 years without American troops being committed to a long-term military expedition, and we weren't funding huge wars overseas, he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you remember the outcry? Do you remember the uproar? Do you remember the condemnation worldwide? How dare you even suggest Donald Trump should get a Peace Prize? This is a group that literally just participated in an attack that killed 1,000 innocent people with rapes and beheadings and ongoing
murdered
kidnapping.
Children, burned families alive.
You don't hear much. You don't.
No.
You don't hear much. You hear some name like, well, it's complicated. It's a nuanced situation. Yeah. So, listen, you're right. This is a good thing. Cards on the table, kids. Good to know where everyone stands. Julie, we have a sad update on a story we tracked last week. A victim of a D.C. carjacking, which sadly this has become mundane at this point to talk about the various carjackings that take place in Washington, D.C. But in this case, it's notable for a couple of reasons. Mike Gill, who is a married father of 3, was the victim of a shooting that took place during a carjacking last week. He also worked for the Trump administration. He was in intensive care for many days, and it was announced over the weekend that he had, in fact, passed away. He was shot, by the way, on K Street Northwest, where he was, I believe, picking up or dropping off his wife. It's one of those stories that is in everyday routine in Washington, D.C., where, married couples, power couples, dropping the spouse off at this law firm or that law firm. You got the kids in the car. You're heading to go pick up the kids. The hustle bustle that we have in our life. Yeah. And then it's disrupted by violent crime that it's become part of the everyday vernacular of Washington, D.C. That people almost have become immune to the tragedy of this. And it's important to stop and think, because I got messages from people on Facebook and on social media who worked with the Gills, knew the Gills, socialized with their families. They lived in Virginia. And we hear nothing from our elected officials. There literally is no solution to this. Well, they don't have a solution to this. But I think this resonates even more because this is, again, I keep beating the drum, that home rule is a failed experiment. The elected officials in Washington, D.C., and the entrenched government of Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, has proven that they have no idea how to manage this city and how to keep the people of the city safe. But more importantly, this is the federal capital. The people of America deserve a safe capital. And Mr. Gill's passing is indicative of the fact that the federal government cannot guarantee that if someone is called to work for the White House or for the Senate or for Congress or for any of the executive branch departments, that their safety is taken for granted, that they come and work in Washington, D.C., work for the federal government in our capital city, but we can't guarantee you won't get shot in the head on a daily basis.
Well, and the thing that bothered me so much about this story is that he had given the keys to this carjacker. He gave the keys away. He did not resist. Mm-hmm. And that carjacker shot him in the head anyway. And I can't tell you how dangerous this city is and how much I avoid going into the city as much as I can because of how scary it is. And you talk about, Larry, how your head's on a swivel every time you're driving in through D.C. We shouldn't feel this way. We shouldn't feel this way. I'm really also depressed with how silent the Washington papers have been and the mainstream media have been. And I can't help but think it's because he worked for Trump.
Well, I was going to say, I think you're right. I was going to get there if you didn't, 100%.
Yeah, his life absolutely has no value to the corporate media because he worked for Trump. And in fact, I have no doubt that some people, because he worked for Trump, are thinking, well, he deserved it.
Sadly, I think you're right. And if it were somebody who worked for the Obama administration and the Biden administration, I think you would definitely have a different story here. You would definitely have different coverage, and you would definitely have a different story. And it's time. It's time for our elected officials to take this. And we know that the elected officials in the District of Columbia aren't going to do anything about this. But I don't know what more.
They keep voting for these people. It's the voters. The voters.
Well, that's why we need to rescind home rule. I don't know what more the House of Representatives needs to see.
Well, this violence is bleeding into Virginia. It's bleeding into Maryland. We have seen an increase in violence in the areas just bordering D.C. And then Don Beyer and Gary Connolly and the other reps that represent areas right outside of Washington, D.C. They want they want statehood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I know. Well, you don't hear them talking about that much anymore, do you? I mean, they'll wait for a better news cycle. Yeah. But when they can blame evil white racist Republicans for not giving statehood to the to the District of Columbia. Mike Gill was Senior Vice President for Capital Markets at the Housing Policy Council. He used to be the Chief of Staff at the Commodities Future Trading Commission during the Trump administration. He served on D.C.'s Board of Elections. I said that he lived in Virginia because honestly, I made that assumption, but he could have actually lived in Washington, D.C. We don't have that detail here. His wife, by the way, Kristen Gill, had released a statement to our friend Shamari Stone over on Fox 5, giving the details of this final death. He broke the story over the weekend, and our prayers are with this family. But we don't want to let it die here. It's time to fix this. I don't know how many more people need to get killed, and again, how many more people who are called to work for our government, who will say, we want our best and brightest to work for the government. Well, your best and brightest aren't going to come work for the government because your best and brightest are afraid they're going to get killed. Yeah. And it's time for Congress to step up and say, it's over. It's over. Home rule was a fun little test, but you can't do it. You've proven you can't do it. Take back your constitutional oversight of the capital city in this country. It's 5:54.